Admiral Kethfer stood at the command center window, watching his world burn. The sky above Kepler 442b was filled with smoke and fire. Strange black ships moved through the clouds like hungry monsters. These were the Zephyrian ships, and they had come to destroy everything. The Admiral was old now, his blue skin marked with scars from many battles. He had fought for the Vorthan Empire for 60 years. He had seen wars and peace, victories and defeats. But he had never seen anything like this. "Admiral, we lost contact with the Eastern Defense Grid," reported Commander Yefdal from his station. The young officer's voice shook with fear. "The swarm has broken through our shields." Kethfer nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Zephyrians were not like other enemies. They learned from every battle. They adapted to every weapon. What worked against them once would never work again. 3 months ago, the first reports had come from the Altarian system. Strange ships attacking the crystal cities. The Altarians were proud and strong, masters of energy weapons. They thought they could handle any threat. Within days, their entire civilization was gone, and the Proximan trade routes went silent. The Proximans were traders and merchants, not warriors. But they had hired the best mercenaries in the galaxy. It did not matter. The swarm consumed them all. The machine worlds of the synthetic collective lasted longer. The robots had no fear, no emotions to cloud their judgment. They fought with cold logic and perfect coordination. But even they fell when the swarm learned to turn their own weapons against them. Now it was the Vorthan Empire's turn. The greatest military power in the galaxy, reduced to one last planet, one last defense. "How many ships do we have left?" Kethfer asked. 12 battleships, 31 cruisers, and 48 fighters, Yefdal replied. "The swarm has over 3,000 ships in orbit." Kethfer closed his eyes. When this battle started, he had commanded 500 ships, the finest fleet in Vorthan history. Now only 91 remained. The Zephyrians were not like any enemy the galaxy had faced before. They were insects, but insects that flew between stars. Their ships were alive, grown rather than built. When damaged, the ships could heal themselves. When destroyed, they would be recycled into new ships. Every species the swarm conquered made them stronger. They took the best technology, the best weapons, the best defenses. They used everything against the next target. The Altarian energy shields now protected Zephyrian ships. The Proximan trade routes helped them move faster. The synthetic collective's weapons were turned against organic life. "Sir, incoming transmission from the fortress," another officer called out. "Put it through," Kethfer ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was tired and desperate. "Admiral, this is General Mortith at the planetary fortress. We cannot hold much longer. The swarm has broken through sectors 7 and 9. They are moving toward the civilian shelters." Kethfer looked at his display screen. Red dots showed where the Zephyrians had landed. There were thousands of them, spreading across the planet like a disease. Soon they would reach the cities where millions of Vorthan civilians waited in underground shelters. "General, evacuate what civilians you can. Focus on the children," Kethfer said. His voice was steady, but his heart was breaking. "Sir, there are not enough ships. We can save maybe 10,000. There are 20 million people on this planet. 20 million. The number hit Kethfer like a physical blow. 20 million Vorthan. Citizens who would die because he had failed to stop the swarm. 20 million voices that would join the billions already silenced across the galaxy. "Do what you can, General. Save who you can save." The transmission ended. Kethfer turned back to the window. More Zephyrian ships were landing now. He could see their forms in the distance, like giant spiders with metal legs and glowing eyes. They moved with terrible purpose, destroying everything in their path. "Admiral, we are receiving distress calls from across the galaxy," reported the communications officer. "The Draconian colonies are under attack. The Aquatic Federation is requesting immediate assistance. The crystalline worlds are going dark." One by one, Kethver listened to the reports with growing despair. The swarm was not just attacking one system. They were attacking everywhere at once. The galaxy was dying, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. "Sir, what are your orders?" Commander Yethdal asked. Kethver looked at his young officer. Yethdal had graduated from the Naval Academy only 2 years ago. He should have had a long career ahead of him, serving the Empire with honor. Instead, he would die today, defending a world that was already lost. "Prepare the hyperspace beacon," Kethver ordered. "Send a message to any ship, any planet, any civilization that might still be listening." "What message, sir?" Kethver walked to the communications console. He activated the beacon himself, knowing this would be the last message the Vorthan Empire would ever send. "This is Admiral Kethver of the Vorthan Empire," he began, his voice carrying across the galaxy through hyperspace. "All major civilizations have fallen. The Altarians are gone. The Proximans are gone. The synthetic collective is gone. The swarm cannot be stopped. They adapt to every weapon, every strategy, every defense. To any who receive this message, do not come here. Do not. Try to help us. Save yourselves. Find somewhere to hide. The galaxy is ending." He paused, looking out at the burning sky. "We fought with honor. We fought with courage. It was not enough. May the stars remember us kindly." The beacon's light pulsed once, sending the message into hyperspace. It would travel to every corner of the galaxy, reaching worlds that still had hope, still had a chance. Maybe some would listen. Maybe some would escape. As the beacon's light faded, explosions rocked the command center. The Zephyrian ships had found their position. Through the smoke and fire, Kethver could see the insectoid forms approaching. Their movements were quick and deadly, like hunters closing in on their prey. "It has been an honor serving with you all," Kethver said to his crew. Around him, Vorthan officers stood at their posts, ready to face the end with dignity. The message traveled through hyperspace, carrying the weight of galactic extinction. Past dead systems and silent worlds, past the ruins of great civilizations, until it reached a small blue planet on the outer edge of the galaxy. A world whose inhabitants most civilizations had dismissed as primitive newcomers. But sometimes, the youngest voices carry the strongest hope. 3 months earlier, Admiral Jake Collins walked through the halls of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. The building was busy with officers and scientists rushing between meetings. Everyone was talking about the same thing, the growing threat in the galaxy's center. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years protecting Earth from threats both inside and outside the solar system. But this threat was different. This threat was bigger than anything humanity had faced before. "Admiral Collins, they are waiting for you in the war room," said Lieutenant Ben Parker, his aide. The young man looked worried. Everyone looked worried these days. Jake entered the war room where Earth's top military leaders sat around a large table. On the wall, a massive screen showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked where civilizations had gone silent. There were too many red dots. "Good morning, Admiral," said President Karen Johnson. She was a strong woman who had led Earth through many crises. But even she looked scared now. "Dr. Martinez will brief you on the latest intelligence." Dr. Lisa Martinez stood up. She was Earth's chief expert on alien life forms. Her hands shook slightly as she activated the display. "The threat calls itself the Zephyrian Swarm," she began. "They are insectoid creatures that travel in biomechanical ships. These ships are alive, grown rather than built. They can heal damage and adapt to weapons. The screen showed images of the alien ships. They looked like giant spiders made of metal and flesh. Their eyes glowed with an evil light. How many civilizations have they destroyed? Asked General Robert Hayes, head of Earth's army. 17 confirmed star systems, Dr. Martinez replied. The Altarian crystal cities, the Proximan trade routes, the synthetic collective worlds. All gone. Billions of lives lost. What about the Galactic Council? Asked Admiral Collins. Surely they have plans to stop this threat. Dr. Martinez shook her head. The Council's combined fleets have been destroyed. The Draconian Empire lost 3/4 of their ships. The Aquatic Federation is in full retreat. The other species are either dead or hiding. Captain Ryan Hayes, no relation to the general, stepped forward. He was young and eager, commander of Earth's newest warship. We can't just sit here while innocent people die. We have to do something. What can we do? Asked President Johnson. Our military is small compared to the galactic powers. We've only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. Most aliens still think we're primitive. Maybe being primitive is an advantage, said Captain Hayes. These aliens learn from every battle. They adapt to advanced weapons and tactics. But maybe they won't expect simple, direct attacks. Admiral Collins studied the star charts. Earth's fleet was indeed small, 200 ships at most, compared to the thousands that the great empires had fielded. But those empires had fallen. Maybe it was time for a different approach. Dr. Martinez, what do we know about their weaknesses? He asked. Very little, she admitted. They seem to consume everything, metal, energy, even biological matter. They use it to build more ships and grow their numbers. Every victory makes them stronger. There has to be something, insisted Captain Hayes. No creature is perfect. Every species has flaws. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent beeping from the communications console. Lieutenant Parker rushed to answer it. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler system. It's coming through the emergency beacon network. Put it through, ordered Admiral Collins. The voice that filled the room was tired and desperate. It spoke with the accent of the Vorthan Empire, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. This is Admiral Kethfer of the Vorthan Empire. All major civilizations have fallen. The Altarians are gone. The Proximans are gone. The synthetic collective is gone. The swarm cannot be stopped. They adapt to every weapon, every strategy, every defense. To any who receive this message, do not come here. Do not try to help us. Save yourselves. Find somewhere to hide. The galaxy is ending. A transmission continued with more desperate words, then ended with an explosion and silence. The room was quiet for a long moment. The Vorthan Empire whispered. Dr. Martinez. They had the strongest military in the galaxy. If they're gone, then we're the only ones left, finished Admiral Collins. He stood up and walked to the star chart. Everyone else is dead or running, but we're still here. Sir, you're not seriously considering fighting these things, said General Hayes. Our entire fleet would be destroyed in minutes. Maybe, said Admiral Collins, but maybe not. These aliens have been fighting the same kinds of enemies for months. Advanced civilizations with energy weapons and defensive shields. They've learned to counter everything the galaxy can throw at them. But they haven't fought us, added Captain Hayes, understanding where his admiral was going. Exactly. They've never faced kinetic weapons. They've never dealt with nuclear missiles. They've never fought an enemy that uses gunpowder and explosives. President Johnson leaned forward. You're talking about taking our entire fleet into a war zone, risking everything humanity has built. I'm talking about saving the galaxy, replied Admiral Collins. Every species out there is either dead or waiting to die. If we don't act now, we'll be next. And there will be no one left to help us. Dr. Martinez pulled up more data on her screen. The Zephyrian bioships are designed to counter energy weapons. But I don't see any adaptations for kinetic impacts or chemical explosives. They might be vulnerable to our weapons. It's a long shot, admitted Captain Hayes, but it's the only shot we have. Admiral Collins looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. He saw fear, but also determination. Humanity had always been fighters. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They had reached for the stars when everyone said it was impossible. I need authorization to mobilize the entire fleet, he said to President Johnson. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. The president was quiet for a long moment. Outside the windows, Earth turned peacefully in space. It was a beautiful world, full of life and hope. Soon it might be the only life left in the galaxy. Authorization granted, she said finally. Admiral Collins, you have full authority to defend Earth and her allies. Do whatever it takes. Admiral Collins nodded. We'll need time to prepare. These aliens are used to fighting scared, desperate enemies. They're not used to fighting humans. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten our neighbors. The meeting broke up with everyone rushing to their duties. As Admiral Collins walked toward the door, Captain Hayes caught up with him. Sir, do you really think we can win? Admiral Collins looked back at the star chart with its red dots marking dead civilizations. I don't know, Captain, but I know we're going to try. And sometimes that's enough. The Earth Defense Force shipyards had never been busier. Ships that had been under construction for years were rushed to completion. Others that had been retired were brought back into service. Admiral Jake Collins stood on the bridge of the prey. UES Vengeance, watching the largest fleet in human history take shape. Admiral, the final count is in, reported Commander Amy Richardson, his tactical officer. She was a smart woman who had planned many successful military operations. 3,047 ships ready for combat. That includes everything, from heavy battleships to support vessels. Jake nodded, looking out at the massive fleet assembled around Earth. The UE's Vengeance was the largest ship humans had ever built. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But even it looked small compared to the task ahead. What about the Marines? Jake asked. Colonel Steve Turner reports 50,000 soldiers ready for deployment. Amy replied, all equipped with the new powered armor and kinetic weapons. They've been training for close combat against insectoid enemies. The human approach to warfare was different from other galactic species. While aliens used energy weapons and force fields, humans still relied on bullets, bombs, and brute force. Many alien civilizations had laughed at human weapons, calling them primitive. But primitive weapons had advantages that advanced technology sometimes lacked. Captain Rachel Stone approached from the science section. She led a team of researchers who had been studying fragments of alien bioships recovered from battle sites. Her face was excited. Admiral, we've made a breakthrough, she said, holding up a small device. We found a weakness in their bioships. Jake turned to listen. Any advantage against the swarm was precious. The alien ships used bioneural networks to coordinate their adaptations, Rachel explained. It's like a nervous system that connects all parts of the ship. But we've discovered that specific electromagnetic frequencies can disrupt these networks. What does that mean for our weapons? Asked Amy. It means we can build pulse generators that will confuse their ships, Rachel replied. When hit with the right frequency, their bioships won't be able to adapt properly. They'll be vulnerable to our attacks. This was the best news Jake had heard in weeks. The swarm's ability to adapt was their greatest strength. If humans could disrupt that ability, they might have a chance. "How long to install these pulse generators on our ships?" he asked. "We're already working on it," Rachel said. "The UES Discovery and 50 other science vessels are being equipped with the new technology. We should be ready in 2 days." Jake walked to the fleet communication console. It was time to address the men and women who would fight this battle. He opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Collins speaking to all vessels of the human fleet. In 2 days, we will leave Earth's solar system to fight an enemy that has destroyed every major civilization in the galaxy. The Altarians, the Proximans, the Vorthan Empire, all gone. We are the last hope for millions of innocent beings scattered across the stars." He paused, looking out at the ships floating in space around him. Each one carried hundreds of human lives. Fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, all willing to risk everything for people they had never met. The enemy thinks they know how to fight. They've learned from every battle, adapted to every weapon, but they've never fought humans. They've never faced kinetic bombardment. They've never dealt with nuclear weapons. They've never fought an enemy that refuses to give up. On ships throughout the fleet, sailors and soldiers listened to their admiral's words. In the engine rooms of battleships, in the gun turrets of destroyers, in the fighter bays of carriers, humans prepared for the greatest battle in their species. "History. We're not fighting for glory," Jake continued. "We're not fighting for conquest. We're fighting because no sentient being should face extinction alone. We're fighting because it's the right thing to do. And we're fighting because we're human, and humans don't abandon their neighbors." The response from the fleet was immediate. Thousands of voices joined in a cheer that could be heard across the communication channels. The sound was picked up by ships throughout the solar system and transmitted to Earth below. On the planet's surface, billions of people watched the fleet preparations. They knew that most of these ships would never return, but they also knew that humanity had to try. It was not in their nature to hide while others suffered. Colonel Steve Turner addressed his Marines from the troop transport UES Defender. Soldiers were young and eager, trained for combat, but untested in real battle. Many had never even seen an alien, let alone fought one. "Listen up," Turner said to his troops. "The bugs we're going to fight are tough. They're fast, they're smart, and they've killed billions of people. But they have one big weakness. They've never fought angry humans." The Marines laughed, a sound full of nervous energy and determination. They wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than any human had ever been. Their weapons were designed to punch through alien bioarmor and deliver explosive death. "Remember your training," Turner continued. "Short, controlled bursts. Watch your corners. Cover your buddies. And when you see one of these bugs, you kill it before it kills you. We're going to show the galaxy what human Marines can do." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the UES Lightning Strike, Captain Tony Mitchell prepared his ship for the fastest combat mission in human history. The Lightning Strike was a new class of vessel designed for hit-and-run attacks. It carried quantum torpedoes that could punch through any known armor. "Navigation, plot a course for the Kepler system," Mitchell ordered. "Best possible speed." "Sir, that's over 300 light-years away," replied the navigation officer. "It will take us 2 weeks to reach the battle zone." "Then we better get started," Mitchell said. "The whole galaxy is counting on us." As the final preparations continued, Jake Collins received a message from President Johnson on Earth. The transmission was brief, but filled with emotion. "Admiral, the entire planet is watching. Humanity's prayers go with you. Bring our people home." Jake looked out at the fleet one more time. In a few hours, they would enter hyperspace and begin the longest journey in human history. They would travel to a distant star system where an alien enemy waited with overwhelming numbers and terrible weapons. But they were not going alone. They carried with them the hopes of every human being, a determination of their species, and the knowledge that sometimes the youngest civilization could teach the oldest the most important lesson of all. The message beacon was activated, sending word to any survivors in the galaxy. This is Admiral Collins of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your distress calls. We are coming. Hold on just a little longer. Help is on the way. The human armada began its journey to save the galaxy. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Admiral Jake Collins stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance, staring at the horror that awaited them. The system was filled with alien ships, thousands of them, like a swarm of metal spiders floating in space. "My God," whispered Commander Amy Richardson beside him. "There are so many of them." Jake counted the enemy ships on his display. Over 15,000 Zephyrian bioships filled the system. They had built a massive hive structure around the planet where Admiral Kethver had made his last stand. The hive was enormous, bigger than Earth's moon. "Sir, we're detecting life signs from the planet's surface," reported Lieutenant Danny Murphy from the sensor station. "There are still survivors down there." Jake felt his heart lift slightly. After all this destruction, some people had managed to stay alive. They were hiding in underground shelters, waiting for rescue that they probably thought would never come. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is moving," said Amy. "They're forming attack formations." The Zephyrian ships began to move like a living thing. Their bioships communicated with each other through some kind of mental link. They had learned from hundreds of battles how to destroy enemy fleets quickly and efficiently. "All ships, battle stations," Jake ordered, "form up according to Attack Plan Alpha. Heavy battleships take the center. Fast attack ships move to the flanks. Science vessels stay back and repair the pulse generators. The human fleet spread out across space." The UE's Vengeance led the center line with her sister battleships. Ships like the UES Retribution and UES Thunder carried the heaviest weapons humanity had ever built. On the flanks, fast ships like the UES Lightning Strike prepared for hit-and-run attacks. The Zephyrian ships fired first. Beams of energy lanced out from their bioweapons. These were the same weapons that had destroyed the mighty Vorthan Empire and a dozen other civilizations. The beams struck human shields and waited for the ships to explode, but the human ships did not explode. Their shields absorbed the energy and spread it out through special dispersal grids. The technology was simple but effective. Where alien shields tried to block energy, human shields redirected it. "Their weapons are not penetrating our shields," reported Amy with surprise. "The energy is being dispersed across the entire grid." Jake smiled grimly. The aliens had learned to counter advanced energy shields, but they had never seen anything like human defensive technology. It was based on principles that were thousands of years old, but it worked. "Return fire," Jake ordered. All ships open fire. The human fleet unleashed its weapons, but instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles. Tungsten slugs traveling at incredible speed. Nuclear warheads that could destroy city blocks. Kinetic bombardment weapons that hit with the force of meteors got the Zephyrian bioships tried. To adapt, their living armor began to change, growing thicker and harder. But the human weapons were too different. How do you adapt to a chunk of metal traveling at 30,000 kilometers per second? How do you grow armor thick enough to stop a nuclear explosion? Alien ships began to die. For the first time in the war, the swarm was taking heavy losses. Their bioships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Pieces of alien technology scattered across space. Captain Stone, deploy the pulse generators, Jake ordered. On the U's Discovery and 50 other science vessels, the electromagnetic pulse weapons activated. Invisible waves of energy swept across the battlefield. The waves were tuned to the exact frequency that disrupted Zephyrian bioneural networks. The effect was immediate. Alien ships suddenly stopped moving in coordination. Some began firing at their own forces. Others spun out of control as their biosystems malfunctioned. The swarm's greatest advantage, their ability to adapt and coordinate, was being torn apart. "It's working," shouted Captain Rachel Stone over the communication link. "The pulse generators are disrupting their nervous systems. They cannot adapt properly." The battle turned into a slaughter. Human ships pressed their attack, firing everything they had. The UE's lightning strike and her sister ships darted between the confused alien vessels, launching quantum torpedoes that tore through bioarmor like paper. But the Zephyrians were not finished. As more human ships entered the battle, the aliens began to concentrate their fire. They might be confused, but they still had overwhelming numbers. "Admiral, the UES Defender is taking heavy damage," reported Amy. "Colonel Turner's Marines are requesting immediate boarding support." Jake looked at the tactical display. The troop transport was surrounded by alien ships. Bioweapons were cutting through its armor. Soon the Marines inside would be exposed to space. UE's Thunderbolt, UE Stormfront, moved to support the Defender, Jake ordered. "Get those Marines out of there." The two destroyers raced toward the trapped transport. Their weapons cleared a path through the alien ships. The U's Defender's shuttle bay opened, and Marines began launching toward nearby alien vessels. Colonel Steve Turner led the boarding assault personally. His powered armor made him strong enough to tear through bioship hulls with his bare hands. The Marines behind him carried weapons designed for close combat against insectoid enemies. "Remember your training," Turner shouted over the communication link. "These bugs are fast, but we're faster. Show them what human Marines can do." The battle inside the alien ships was brutal. The Zephyrians were like giant insects with razor-sharp claws and acid that could melt through metal. But the human Marines had trained for this. They moved in teams, covering each other, using their superior weapons and armor. Lieutenant Sarah Bell led a squad of Marines through the corridors of a bioship. The walls were alive, pulsing with alien blood. Strange growths hung from the ceiling like diseased fruit. It was like fighting inside the stomach of a monster. "Contact front," she called out as insectoid warriors appeared ahead of them. "Light them up." The Marines opened fire. Their weapons sent explosive shells into the alien creatures. The bugs were tough, but human weapons hit harder than anything they had faced before. Meanwhile, in space, the main battle continued. The human fleet was winning, but at a terrible cost. Ships were being destroyed on both sides. The space around Kepler was filled with wreckage and debris. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," reported Lieutenant Murphy. "It's Admiral Kethfor. He's still alive." Jake felt a surge of hope. The old Vorthan commander had survived the destruction of his empire, put him through. The voice that came over the speakers was weak but filled with amazement. "Human fleet, this is Admiral Kethfor. I cannot believe you came. I told you to stay away." "We don't abandon our neighbors," Jake replied. "How many survivors are with you?" "Maybe 50,000 in the deep shelters," Kethfor answered. "But, Admiral, there are too many enemy ships. You cannot win this battle." Jake looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was still larger than his own, but the aliens were no longer adapting to human weapons. Their coordination was broken. For the first time in the war, they were fighting like individual ships instead of a unified swarm. "Maybe we cannot win," Jake said, "but we're going to try, and sometimes That's enough. The battle raged on. Human ships fought with desperate courage against overwhelming odds. They had come too far to give up now. The galaxy was watching, and humanity would not let them down. The battle had raged for 18 hours. Admiral Jake Collins stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance, watching his fleet fight against impossible odds. They had destroyed thousands of alien ships, but more kept coming. The Zephyrian Hive structure still hung in space like a cancer, pumping out new bioships to replace the ones humanity had killed. "Admiral, we cannot keep this up much longer," said Commander Amy Richardson. Her voice was tired. Everyone was tired. "We've lost 47 ships. Our ammunition is running low." Jake looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was still fighting, but they were being slowly overwhelmed. For every alien ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The hive was the key. As long as it existed, the swarm would keep growing stronger. "Captain Stone, status on the pulse generators?" Jake asked. "Still working, but the aliens are starting to adapt," Captain Rachel Stone replied from the UES Discovery. "They're building resistance to the electromagnetic frequencies. We maybe have an hour before they're completely immune." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "All ships, this is Admiral Collins. I'm taking the strike group directly to the hive structure. Continue the battle here. Keep the pressure on them." "Sir, that's suicide," protested Amy. "The hive is protected by thousands of ships. Maybe, but it's our only chance. If we can destroy the hive, we can break their coordination permanently." Jake selected his fastest ships for the assault. The U-East Vengeance would lead, followed by the destroyers U-E-S Thunder and U-Storm. Captain Ryan Hayes volunteered his ship, the U's Defiance, for the most dangerous part of the mission. "Captain Hayes, your ship will carry the quantum bombs." Jake ordered, "Get them to the hive's core and detonate them. That should destroy the entire structure." Ryan's face was grim. "Admiral, that's a one-way trip. The blast will destroy my ship too." "I know," Jake said quietly. "I'm asking for volunteers only." "You've got them, sir." "My whole crew volunteers." The strike group broke away from the main battle and raced toward the hive. The massive structure grew larger as they approached. It was even more horrible up close. The hive was made of living tissue and metal, pulsing with alien life. Ships were being grown inside it like eggs in a nest. Thousands of Zephyrian bioships moved to intercept them. Energy beams and bioweapons filled space around the small human force. The U's Thunder took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. Captain Mitchell and his crew died instantly. "Keep moving," Jake ordered. "Don't stop for anything." The U's Defiance pushed ahead of the other ships. Captain Hayes had loaded his vessel with every quantum bomb the fleet could spare. If these weapons detonated inside the hive's core, the explosion would tear the entire structure apart. "Admiral, this is Hayes," came the captain's voice over the radio. "Beginning final approach. It's been an honor serving with you." "The honor was mine, Captain. Give them hell." The UE's Defiance raced toward the hive's entrance. Alien ships swarmed around it like angry wasps. The human destroyer's shields flared and died under the concentrated fire. Hull plates peeled away. Atmosphere leaked into space dot, but Hayes kept flying. His ship was dying around him, but he pushed forward. The hive's entrance grew larger on his screen. Dark tunnels led deep into the alien structure. "Almost there," Hayes reported. His voice was calm, like he was discussing the weather. "Tell my wife I love her." The UE's Defiance disappeared into the hive. For a moment, there was silence. Then space itself seemed to tear apart. The quantum bombs exploded deep inside the hive's core. The blast was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Pure energy ripped through the living structure, destroying everything in its path. The hive began to collapse in on itself. But more importantly, the explosion sent electromagnetic shockwaves throughout the system. Every Zephyrian bioship was connected to the hive through bioneural links. When the hive died, those links were severed violently. The effect on the swarm was immediate and devastating. Ships that had been fighting in perfect coordination suddenly stopped responding to commands. Some began attacking their own forces. Others simply drifted in space, their crews dead or unconscious. All ships, press the attack, Jake ordered. The swarm is broken. Finish them. The human fleet fell upon the confused aliens like wolves on wounded prey. Without their coordination and adaptation abilities, the Zephyrian ships were just targets. Human weapons tore through them with ease. Colonel Steve Turner and his Marines completed their boarding operations. The alien ships they had captured were now silent and lifeless. The insectoid warriors inside were dead, their connection to the hive severed forever. Within hours, the mighty swarm was reduced to floating wreckage. Ships that had conquered 17 star systems now drifted as scrap metal. The galaxy's greatest threat had been defeated by the species everyone had considered primitive. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy," reported Lieutenant Danny Murphy. "Survivors are coming out of hiding. The refugee fleets are returning." Jake smiled for the first time in days. "Put me through to Admiral Kethver on the planet." The old Vorthan commander's voice was filled with wonder. "Admiral Collins, how did you do it? How did you defeat the undefeatable?" "We did what humans do best," Jake replied. "We refused to give up. We fought for people we'd never met because it was the right thing to do." "We called you primitive," Kethver said softly. "We called you young and inexperienced. We were wrong. You are what we should have been." The rescue operations began immediately. Human ships descended to the planet's surface to evacuate survivors. Medical teams treated wounded aliens with the same care they gave to human soldiers. It did not matter what species they were. They were all people who needed help. Dr. Lisa Martinez worked in a field hospital set up near one of the refugee camps. She treated Vorthan children who had lost their parents. Altarian crystals that had been cracked by alien weapons, and synthetic beings whose circuits had been damaged. All of them looked at their human rescuers with gratitude and amazement. In the weeks that followed, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Earth. They came to thank humanity and to discuss the future. The old Galactic Council was gone, destroyed along with most of its member species. Something new was needed. "We propose the creation of the Terran Protectorate," announced President Karen Johnson to the assembled delegates. A new government dedicated to protecting all sentient life from extinction-level threats. The proposal was accepted unanimously. Earth's fleets would patrol the galaxy's borders, watching for new threats. Human colonies would be established on worlds left empty by the swarm's destruction. The species that had once dismissed humanity, as newcomers now looked to them as protectors and leaders. Admiral Jake Collins was promoted to Fleet Admiral and given command of the new Galactic Defense Force. He stood on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance as it patrolled the Outer Rim, keeping watch over the healing galaxy. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up a distress call from the Andromeda system," reported Amy, now his second in command. "Unknown alien attackers?" Jake looked out at the stars. There would always be new threats, new challenges. But humanity would face them as they had faced the swarm, together, with courage, and with the absolute refusal to abandon those who needed help. "Set course for Andromeda," he ordered. "Maximum speed. Let's go save some people." The UE's Vengeance and her escort ships jumped into hyperspace, racing toward another world in need. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, a blue jewel in space that had become the center of galactic civilization. Humanity had proven that sometimes the youngest species could teach the oldest the most important lesson of all: hope, courage, and the willingness to fight for others could overcome any darkness. The galaxy was safe, and it would stay safe as long as humans watched over it. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, knowing that somewhere among them, protectors were, standing guard